Hello, my fellow credit renovators. Welcome back to my channel. And for those of you visiting for the first time, welcome. Here we talk about all things credit, many things business, but it's all good. It's all good because here, better credit means a better life. Better credit leads to a better life. Now, today I'm going to give you the nitty gritty on the dispute process, a really good run through on the steps if you're trying to fix your credit and you got negative items on your credit report that you want to dispute. And so I'm going to run that through you. But first, I wanted to talk a little bit about why I call my company Credit Renovators. I call it that because I believe that, or I look at rebuilding your credit much like renovating your house. And what do I mean by that? Because when you're renovating a house, you have to tear out all the old bad stuff, anything that's rotten, outdated, ill repaired, that needs to be updated before you can put on the new nice stuff and upgrade. It's sort of the metaphor of the lipstick on a pig when people try to put new stuff on top of old stuff, and it's usually not doesn't come out right. If you can get it to look halfway decent, it won't last because you have to tear out the old stuff and put in new stuff. You know, so credit is much like that. You got to get rid of a lot of the old negative items on your credit in order to go forward and build new positive credit. Now, a lot of folks will try to ignore the negative items and say, oh, I'll just keep going out and get new accounts to build my credit. But the problem with that is if you still have negative items on your credit, anybody you go to now to try to get new credit, they're going to look at the old information and they're either going to say no, which you're going to end up with a lot of unnecessary inquiries, or if they say yes, they say, okay, well, based on your old track record, we're only going to trust you with a small amount. So you'll end up with a series of small little credit cards with $300 balances, and it's very difficult to build your credit that way, and definitely not in a the most efficient way to do it. So, having said that, let's go through the steps of building your or start working on your credit, just like you would do renovate a house. Let's renovate the credit. So now the first step in cleaning up your credit and going in the dispute process is what I call the inspection phase. Just like in a house, if before you do anything, you get the house inspected to see what the current systems in the house look like in terms of the walls, the insulation, the electrical, the plumbing, the foundation, especially the roof, things like that, to make sure what is the state of those items, determine what needs to be replaced, what needs to be repaired, what needs to be updated, so on and so forth. Credit's the same way. And we do that by starting out by reviewing the credit report. Now, it's important that the credit report that you view is from a reputable company. You want to be looking at all three bureaus: TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax. And you want to be kind of know what scoring model that your credit report is built on. Is your score built on FICO 8? Is it built on Vantage 3.0, which those two are very similar? There's a little slight difference. FICO 8 doesn't give you as much credit, no pun intended, for your payment history than Vantage does. A bigger percentage of your score with Vantage comes from pay history, 40% versus 35 for FICO 8. So you want to know that so that you'll know what kind of measuring stick that you're looking for. But more importantly, score is not the issue. It's being able to see all three bureaus and the information on them. So in that review process, when you look over your credit report, you want to look for all the incorrect data, dates, times, balances, all of those items on those different data points, we call them, on your credit, to make sure that the information is correct. Not only is it correct on one bureau, but is it correct across all three bureaus? And does the information match on all three bureaus? If they don't, then that's an issue that needs to be resolved. Secondly, we're going to look for any, negative information that may be correct, but we still want to make note of as negative. I mean, because we still want to try to address the negative items too. Our goal is to clean up the credit report, and then the scores will come. So don't try to focus on what's try to itemize your negative information in terms of points on your credit score. No, the goal here is to get rid of all the negative information. Because we gotta rip out the old plumbing, we gotta rip out the old drywall, we gotta take down that old wallpaper, we gotta get rid of that old linoleum floor and those old 80 cabinets and the old brass fixtures. That's what we're doing. We're looking to see what we can tear out and get rid of on the credit report. Now, whether those negative items are correct or incorrect, we still want to make note of them. And then remember, what was the circumstance behind it? Were these things, is this correct? Is it really yours? Is it something how old is it? If it's old enough, we may be able, you may be able to get it off just by the statute of limitations, and it's expired. And so you want to make note of all of those discrepancies, all those issues, dates, and things like that, because those will become what we call basis for dispute. I know a lot of you folks out there hear about disputing items on your credit report. Well, dispute really means, the definition of dispute is we have a disagreement. And if you have items on your credit report that shouldn't be there, you disagree on them being there. If you're saying the information is wrong, you disagree with the credit bureau and the creditor about the information. If you don't think it should be there, you disagree. But disputing has to have a basis. And so by reviewing the report and making note of all of these items that need attention, that's how we determine what is going to be your basis for disputing those negative items that we're going to go through in the next phase, which is called the demolition phase, also known as the dispute process. So now, in the dispute process, once we've determined that we have all these negative items that we want to get rid of, we want to get them off our credit report so that we can have a cleaner report, a stronger report, and then as a result, as a byproduct, higher scores. So first thing we want to do, any items that we think are wrong or that we think that we want to address, the first thing you want to do is request a validation and verification of all those negative items. And that first request is going to be through the credit bureaus. So you want to generate a letter, and I can give you more information on that. If you contact me, I can help you with that as well. But you want to have a good letter asking for them to validate and verify whichever accounts that you're challenging, that you're saying, I don't think they should be there. I don't think information is correct. And so by submitting those, and I recommend that you only do 3, no more than 5 accounts. If you got more than 5, don't do more than 5 in 1 month. So you want to pick your 5 worst ones, request those, and then save the rest for next month. Because what happens is the credit bureaus tend to call more than 5, a request for more than request validation verification of any kind on more than 5 accounts at once. They label that as a frivolous request, and they think you're just trying to clog up the system. So they'll pretty much ignore you, or they'll respond and say, hey, we think this is frivolous. Again, another stall tactic that they do. So 2 or 3 items is best, no more than 5. Send them letters asking them to validate and verify the information that you say is wrong or incorrect or just negative, and you want them to validate and verify it. We do that because, according to the Fair Credit Reporting Act, any accounts that cannot be validated and verified must be removed from your credit report. So you may be able to get rid of some of the unnecessary things just by doing that. That's step 1. So you have to do that, and then you have to give them time to respond. Now, the Fair Credit Reporting Act gives them 30 days to investigate and then respond back to you, and they usually do it by mail. So if you figure the time it takes for you to mail out this, now you can dispute online, but I know from experience that the credit bureaus tend to dismiss, disregard, or quickly respond to electronic disputes. And then they'll just quickly say, and what, from what I understand, what they really do is they, you ask about something being validated, they contact the creditor and say, hey, you guys says this balance is such and such and such. Consumer says it's not. And then they say, yeah, that's what it is. That's what we told you. They say, oh, okay. And then they respond to you and say, we investigated and we found it to be accurate. All they did was ask the person who was telling the wrong information, is your information right? And that makes no sense at all. Because if you're telling it wrong, me asking you to double check and you just say, yeah, I checked, that's not the way to do it. So that would be the first step. But that's could possibly what could happen. If it does, then your next step is to request validation and verification directly from the creditor. So when you send it to them directly, they have to supply you with whatever information that they have, the documentation that says, you started this account. It was you. You borrowed this much money. Here's your payment history. They say you're in delinquent or collections. They say, here's your pay history. Here's where you stop paying. Here's what you owe. Or they say, oops, our bad. This is not you. And then it gets removed. Or, oops, you're right. Or it gets updated. Maybe you're right. You weren't late. Things like that. So if you got late payments, you want to validate and verify to see if that's correct. If it's a collection and it's a legitimate collection, that information. So that's what the purpose of the validation and verification step is, to make sure that either the information that gets reported is corrected, or if it's something that can't be validated and verified, guess what? They have to remove it and you don't have to worry about paying it. And so the next thing basically is the if then. I talk a lot about if thens with my clients and prospective clients, because it's always, if this happens, then you got to do this. If it happens, then you do this. So in this case, when you send out the request for validation verifications, one or two things going to happen. If they can't validate or verify it, boom, it gets removed from your credit report. If they do validate and verify it, you'll receive documentation. You'll receive sometime be a little packet. Again, it's with a copy of the original contract that you signed for that loan agreement. It'll be the pay history from the life of the account all the way up to where you supposedly went into default. And then any late fees, anything else that they assessed as part of that balance, the opening dates, closing dates, all of that stuff, it'll be included in that validation verification. And so then you go over that and see if that makes sense. And then if what they sent you matches what's on the credit report, then you have them updated there. If you believe that, like in the case of this account, they sent you all this information and you look and you say, I knew I didn't remember this account. And this is mine because this is not even my handwriting, which might suggest that this account was opened by someone else in your name. That's kind of one thing. So if it's something like that, then you respond with, this is fraud. If everything checks out, then it's like, oh, okay, now I know I owe this debt, or unless there was some circumstance with the actual merchant about why you shouldn't owe this account. Like you said, the contract says you borrowed $6,000 and you said, no, I only borrowed 600, things like that. So it's a lot of if then. If they say this, then you respond accordingly. If they say this and this is true or not true, you respond accordingly. So that's what I talk about as an example of if then statements when I often get questions about if this happens or if this happens. And so each time that you get a response that is not favorable, then you have a choice to respond and go back to them and say, no, I need, this is more, or you have some documentation that proves your position. And then you say, oh, I got this. But it's always preferred, if you have documentation to support your dispute, you should send that the first time. And then there's less chance of you having them coming back with anything other than a favorable result for you. And so That's how it goes. And that's what I talk about when I talk about the dispute process is back and forth, because you send something, they respond, then you have to respond to their response, and then they'll respond to your response, and it's back and forth until you get the resolution that you're looking for, or find out that the resolution you weren't looking for, but it is in fact true. So then you can come to terms with whether you have to pay this debt in order to improve your credit. So that's like what I call the demolition part. Just like in a house, you demo, you rip out everything in the walls, you get down to the bare studs, you replace your electrical, because your idea is we're trying to rip out all the bad electrical, all the bad plumbing, all the bad insulation, if there's any, so that we can clear all that out, make sure everything is good before we start putting new electrical back in, new plumbing, new insulation, and then new drywall. So after demo, and all of that, and we've cleared up all your as many negative items as you can, either through the dispute process or through negotiated payment, to get those off and to get them satisfied and removed from your credit. The third phase will be the renovation phase, where we start to rebuild your credit. Now, when you want to when you're trying to build new credit, rebuild your credit, you want to start, obviously, just like in a house, where you're going to start with the walls you have, that everything that you didn't demo, the wall systems, the floor system, all of that, you want to start with that, and you're going to put new stuff on top of that. Your existing credit that's open and active is just like that. So if you have any credit cards whatsoever and they have low balances, once you've cleaned up all the old negative items, then and only then do I believe you should go out. Before you go out and try to apply for anything new, work with the existing ones you got. And how do you do that? Well, of course, you guys are all familiar with the credit utilization ratio, that part of your credit report management that says if you on your revolving accounts, that's credit cards and lines of credit, that you should not carry a balance more than 30% of your total your total credit limit. And so, yes, that helps. That staying under 30 keeps your score from being dinged. But here's another benefit to that you guys are going to love. By not only taking the credit utilization and managing, keeping it under 30, not only does it help with your overall credit health and score, it also helps with your relationship with your creditors that you have your credit cards with. What do I mean by that? Well, here's generally how it goes. Okay, John has, $1,000, a credit card with $1,000 limit. Now, of course, he's aware of the 30% credit utilization, so he keeps his balance under $300. And he does that intermittently, and they never raise it. Well, actually, I'm going to give you a better example. John's credit limit is $300. So that's probably more like what we would see in this situation. So his credit limit is $300. It's only $300. And he really wants to grow his credit. He wants to build credit. Now, if he goes out and try to apply for new cards, most likely they're going to give him another card just like the one that he already has. And that doesn't really help build his credit that much. But yet people do that all the time. Here's a better way. Now, that $300 limit, that means he can't carry a balance of more than $100. And if he keeps going over routinely, he's not maintaining that. Now, he may be trying to maintain the limit, but he's not. A better way to go is use that card. I tell folks, don't use that card for anything. Put your Netflix, a couple other items on there that equal up to no more than $90 a month. I mean, on that card. And so just have them do that. Now, what will happen is, say that, that card lender is ABC Bank. ABC Bank, after 3 months, and I guarantee this because I tell people, do this. If you do this and everything else is good on your credit, I guarantee you that they're going to raise your credit limit. But if other things are off or you don't follow this exactly, it may not work for you. But if you follow everything exactly, I almost guarantee you're going to get credit limit increases. So that card and any other cards you got, if you keep them all under 30%. In this case, the $300 card, our card is, don't go over $90. If you set up a couple of recurring payments that equal up to $90 and don't use the card for anything else, between 3 and 6 months, they're going to look at you. They're going to say, oh, John, oh, okay, John's aware of the credit utilization ratio. He's keeping his $300 card down, balance below $90. He's paying on time every month. Maybe we should think about giving him a limit increase. But before we do that, let's take a look at his credit in what we call a soft pull. And what they'll do is look at what you're doing with your other accounts, because they know what you're doing with them. They want to see what you're doing with the others, that you don't have any other cards that might be maxed out, or you got late payments on one of your other accounts. If everything looks good, you're paying on time on everything like we're supposed to, you're keeping your credit utilization down on every card you got, not what Credit Karma says, as long as this one's high and this one's low. Credit utilization is supposed to be managed on an individual card basis. So you can't think that if this one's high, this one's maxed out, but this one's zero, they balance each other out. That's not how credit utilization is looked at. And so if they see that they see how you're managing your account with them, they see how you're managing all your other accounts. The first time, they may or may not invite you to apply for a credit limit increase. And that's mostly dependent on what your income was that you told them when you first got the car, or if it's been a while. So they want to see that your income is at least where it was or higher, and that'll determine how much of a credit limit increase that they'll give you. So when you do that and you do the credit limit increase, your scores are up because we've cleaned up all the negative stuff. And now we're trying to build credit, and the accounts you are maintaining that you currently have, you're maintaining them well. They will give you an increase. They may take you from $300 to $1,000, maybe $750, depending on, like I said, depends on your income. If your income is really good, then they may go right to $1,000. And so now your credit score benefits, because now your file shows that you have a higher credit capacity than you had before. So you get more points for being able to do what you did to earn that higher capacity. And then the beauty of that is when your credit score goes up, and then now this card has a higher credit limit, one of your other cards is going to do a soft pull because you're doing the same thing with them. They're going to see that this other card is 1,000. And then they're going to see your score is higher, and then they're going to know that you've been maintaining a good credit utilization. They may raise their card with you to $1,000 or higher, and then they may not invite you to apply for anything new. They'll just give it to you, and then that becomes this cycle. And as you do it more and more, higher and higher, and see, with a higher limit card, you can either keep maintaining that same balance and have a even lower credit utilization ratio, which helps even more. You make it now, you might have a little room. You say, okay, now my credit limit is $1,000. Now I can spend a little bit more. I may not necessarily need to go to the new 30% number, which on $1,000 would be $300, but you at least have some room. And then you maintaining those regular payments that they love to see, because they get merchant fees off of it. But you still got a little room. So if you decide to use it for gas or buy yourself something and then bring it down, as long as you stay under the 30%, you're golden. The lower, the better in terms of that. And then over time, you will find that your limits will get higher and higher. I mean, speaking for myself, on the personal side, I have 9 credit cards. My lowest credit limit is $11,800. Some of them are nearly $30,000 each. Of course, I don't have balances that high, but those are the credit limits because I've earned my way up to those through the use of proper credit utilization, and keeping my balances ultra low. My utilization is somewhere between 10 and 15% across, overall on average. But none of my cards, I have high balances, exceeding that, anything like that. So I can tell you, it does work. I've done it. Everything I'm telling you is what I have done for myself, and I have done for clients. So I know it works. And I know it can work for everybody and anybody as long as you follow those steps. So that's better. You want to do that first before you want to start going out and trying to open up new accounts. You want to have what you got look good, because anybody you apply to, they're gonna give you what you already got. So if you got low limit cars, they're only gonna offer you another low limit car. If you got medium higher limits, then they're gonna offer you similar to what you've already demonstrated that you can manage. That and remember, these are all soft pulls, so they don't even have to do any hard pulls. So this is a way to build your credit without all the inquiries necessary with applying for new credit. So keep that in mind. You want to selectively, speaking of opening new accounts, you want to be selective in that. Obviously, if it's time for you to get a new car, you want to finance a car, great. You do that when it's time. But again, with better credit, you're going to get a better rate on your car. You're going to have a better payment, or you can qualify. I mean, you can qualify for more car. That's going to be more income based. But having the better credit gives you a lower interest rate, which makes your payment lower on the same amount of money than if you had high credit. Higher rates. And then, of course, when we're talking about mortgage, obviously, higher credit and lower rates make a huge difference in your payment because your interest rate is determined by your credit score and your overall credit, and of course the underwriter approval. But so everything just becomes more affordable when you have better credit, which means you can buy a nicer car with the same payment you would have to buy the not so nice car. You can buy a little bit more house when you got favorable financing. Credit card rates are much lower when you got better credit, and as long as you pay on time and in full, that won't change. And then, of course, you want to have the proper mix of credit when you're applying. I mean, ideally, you want to have a few credit card accounts, which we call revolving credit. So a credit card or a line of credit. You want to have at least one short-term installment loan. That's usually a car, could be a motorcycle, could be a boat. And then we usually they like to see, not we, but they like to see one long-term installment loan, like a mortgage. So when you got a mix there, that's a good balanced mix. You get points for that because that's part of the credit items that are the percentage that make up your score. Credit mix is one of them. And then, of course, payment history is the biggest one. So paying on time and in full is the most important one of all. And then credit utilization is one. Your overall length of credit and age of credit is one. But that's just on that. So in short, building credit, repairing your credit, restoring your credit takes building of credit, demolition of old negative stuff, and of course, it all starts with an inspection. So, inspect your credit by a credit review, demolish all the old negative stuff through the dispute process, and then rebuild your credit in the renovation process by building on your existing credit that you already have credit accounts, and then opening new accounts in a strategic and selective way so that you can build. So anything new you bring in is going to be like what you already got or better. So hopefully you guys find that helpful. My next video, I'm going to go deeper into the dispute process a little bit further in terms of letters and things like that. So that's an upcoming video. So my credit renovators, good luck in your rebuilding process. You're going to get dirty. You're going to get dusty, but you got to be persistent in the demolition phase and the dispute process. And it's going to be some back and forth, but you can get it done. And if you find that you still can't get it done, you can always give me a holler and I can take care of it for you, me or somebody from my team. So hopefully you found this video helpful. If so, please put comments below. If you didn't find it helpful, please put comments. Tell me what I need to do better. Tell me what you guys want to hear, because I want to make these videos. I'm making these videos for you, and I want to make them as best as they can to serve you guys and be helpful in you renovating your credit and you trying to make your journey towards a better life through better credit, because of course better credit means a better life. Better credit leads to a better life. So until the next video, you guys, God bless and take care. Talk to you soon. Bye.